So welcome, thank you for coming. A different hat that I get to wear quite often, and I actually get to spend a fair amount of time in this building, is with Alberta Canola. I'm the Zone 5 rep for here. And congratulations to Greg and Lori and Cindy for putting this on, because we spend a lot of farmer levy dollars and we don't get this kind of reception. We barely get a quarter of this room full trying to have grower engagement. So congratulations, that's pretty good. This is my family. I farm in the Barrhead Westlock area. I farm with my wife and business partner Donna. My son is here today, Ty. I also farm with my son-in-law Curtis. We currently have a seed farm. We didn't have livestock, but Curtis has a real passion for cattle. And yeah, he had purebred business, and so somehow I got talked into, we should buy a couple of expensive show cows. And last week one calf was born, minus 37. It's gonna have no ears, so we're off to a blazing start. I already hate cattle, but he came with a pretty good business plan, budget. And so I also see value there because we're a seed farm. We have a lot of screenings, and I see value in putting those screenings through the animals. So yeah, get some better utilization there, because we're just not getting paid real well for our screenings. So my journey into reducing synthetic fertilizers, it's not been a smooth transition. It's been rather jerky, disjointed. It started really without me really knowing that I was making a change. And so that started in 2008. I hadn't gone to the conference, I was working, but my dad had gone to the Reduced Tillage Linkage Conference, which was just across the street. And that year they had brought in Dr. Dwayne Beck, and he's the research manager and professor at South Dakota State University. And he was speaking at that conference. One of the things that he mentioned, and I still have the pamphlet or the booklet today, and I read it every once in a while, but one of the things that really stuck out for me was he, on his travel here, there were so many bare fields, and this is of course in November, bare fields, lots of tillage, and he's like, why isn't there anything growing in the fields? And it stuck with me, like, whoa, this guy's nuts. Like, of course there's nothing growing in the fields, it's winter time. But I have learned to have a different appreciation of what he was trying to talk to us about. So I guess that was my start of my introduction. How did we get here? So soil structure, compaction, the next year Reduced Tillage Linkage had another conference, and they brought out a speaker, and his name was Robert Ruwalt. And he was doing a talk on no-till. But in his presentation, he slipped in controlled traffic farming. And so it's got everything to do with compaction, soil structure, and this really resonated with me, and totally out of my character. After the event, I went up to him and I said, I really want to learn more about what you're doing. Could I come to your farm and see what you're doing? He farms in Australia. He said, sure. So, well, would it be okay if I helped you harvest? Yeah. Would it be okay if I took my family along? Okay. Let me get back to you on that, though. He said, maybe I'll be able to find you a place to stay. He did. He rented us a place, didn't know me. Found us a place to live for 2 months, gave us a vehicle to drive. It was an amazing experience. Best thing we ever did as a family for 2 months, just live in a different culture, and I got to spend time learning about this different way of farming. After the conference, I said to my dad, every time we buy a piece of equipment now, we should be thinking about when we need a new piece of equipment, how do we make this fit so We keep all our wheels on the same spot, reduce the amount of compaction in our field. I think there's something to this. So we were one of the 5 producers in Alberta to adopt controlled traffic farming. University of Alberta was doing all the measuring and data collecting. They were building models of how much wheel traffic we had in our fields. So in 2 years, we're basically at 100% compaction across the land, and we actually don't know what uncompacted soil even looks like. So we were in a real journey as far as we were measuring bulk density, we were doing infiltration rates, we were, I guess for lack of better words, is we were just trying to build that sponge bigger so we could hold a little bit more water. So that when we got into a dry spell, we, quite often we said, one more rain and I would have had it. We were trying to build that so we had that one more rain. I'm not very patient. So 2014, I bought a ripper and I started ripping land to speed up our results because we had seen incredibly good results running controlled traffic. We were ripping about 400 acres a year. Things were pretty smooth. All of a sudden 2016 hit, we went into a 4-year skid of it was incredibly wet. Ripping into those kind of conditions is terrible. It's like monumentally bad. Our soil was like blubber. There was no compaction, so we had nothing to lift us. We were just sinking, which I have a picture of. Everybody was bad, but we were just worse early because we had infiltrated so much more water through our spring melt into the spring. Like we were at maximum holding capacity very early, and it was just bad. We were early in our farming career. We didn't have much for crop insurance averages. I kept spending the same amount of money on fertilizer every year, not growing much of any crop. We weren't making money. We were going backwards fast. We were on a repeat. You know what? Next year can't be as bad. It was. So multiple years of losing money. We had used up our savings. We used up our working capital. We maxed out our line of credit. We couldn't make payments. So we had some hard decisions to make. So one of those is we had to refinance. We had to sell off some equipment. That's a tough blow to the ego. Not easy. We had worked hard to get to where we were, and yeah, we had done some pretty incredible things, and it all got wiped away with not of what we did, just the cards we were dealt. So one of the things we were doing at that time was we were using a planter to plant our canola, and a little bit off topic, yesterday Dr. Thomas Dykstra really pointed out something that resonated with me. It was when we simulated canola seed, and they weren't touching, there was so much power in that canola, our yields went up, disease wasn't as much of an issue just because everything was bigger, stronger, healthier. And so I want to get back to that. We're not. We're currently using a tine drill. We were using a disc drill at that time. We want to get back to that, but I'm not going to. I think what I've learned at that time with the disc drill, our land was just getting harder, and the wheels on the disc drill were actually lifted off the ground. We had putting as much down pressure as we could. We're currently using a tine drill. We'll stick with that. Our usable soil right now, or structured soil, is not good enough to use a disc, so we'll just use a tine opener and do some rip that bit of compaction layer, and that's serving us well for now. Yeah, along this journey, it's going to get better, and I hope we can make a change. So we're going through this wet time, and I was asking myself, wasn't the ground supposed to hold this fertilizer? Like, where's it going? What's going on? That time, my dad had given me a book to read. It was a book called Dirt by David Montgomery. Another book that I had got actually from Robert, and probably the most influential on what I was doing, was a book called Stubble Over the Soil by Carlos Corvetto. This guy was farming regeneratively before it was cool in the 70s and 80s already, and actually June of 2022, the book was named one of the top most influential books of no-till literature. So if you haven't read that, it's a great book to read. The film Kiss the Ground had come out at that time and solidified the idea in my head that our farm needed to change a lot to be viable. Previous to that, I had met Kevin Elmy a few times. He had spoke at one of our farm tours. I'd heard him speak at Farm Tech. Patrick Fabian was there. They were talking about tillage radish, and that's one of my pictures there, 2015, is we had taken the peas off and put in some tillage radish, and that was our first attempt into breaking compaction without steel and diesel. I'll veer off a little bit just because that same year, my brother, he had taken his peas off, and he's like, I would like to try some of that, what you're doing, cover cropping. What should I do? I don't know. What do you got in the bin? I got peas in the bin. Well, why don't you plant some peas? So we had taken his peas off late August, planted peas. We had an incredibly open fall that year, fairly similar to this, other than no frost for quite a while. Those peas actually made it. They were blooming before the first frost. Yeah, it was amazing. So he got some soil samples done. He's very conventional. Soil samples came back, zero requirement for nitrogen for his canola crop the next year. Wow, that's amazing. What do you think I should do? I don't know, probably a good time to do a trial. Want to try some 100% nitrogen rate, 75, 50, 0. And so the apple probably doesn't fall far from the tree, and my dad's here, and he's not good at doing trials. I'm not good at trials, and my brother's not good at trials. And what did he do? He did 100% nitrogen across the whole field, which is about 120 pounds of N, one strip of 0. What happened the next year? This crop is rank. Like, it is incredibly good, but a disaster. It's so much disease, lodged, miserable. He swathed it, hoping to harvest. That was a bad year, didn't get to harvest it. No data out of it, harvested it the next spring. But swathing it, that 0 strip was the only strip that it actually was decent. Like, didn't lodge, could swath it nice. Everything else was a disaster. So we didn't get results necessarily, yield results, but it proved a point. We can grow our own fertilizer. Interestingly enough, my brother is maybe wired a wee bit different than I am. It was a failure to him. Like, he'll never do, well, never, I shouldn't say never, because never's for a long time. He won't do that again. Like, it was, he didn't see value. It frustrated him. So just different. So we needed to make a change at that time in our career. I had talked to Kevin. I'm like, Kevin, we got to make some changes. Would you help me on trying to figure out my path on using less synthetic fertilizers? And he said, I'm awfully busy. And he put me in touch with Daryl Chubb, and talked to Daryl, and he agreed to help us out through this new world that we needed to navigate. And so we came up with a plan. And we had went through a number of different plans, and I learned a lot from him. He pushed me hard on what our goals were, what were we trying to achieve, were they realistic, and most of all, don't get caught up in the fairy dust stuff. So our goals at that time I look back now and it's a bit realistic, like, well, I want to farm with zero fertilizer. Maybe it's possible, but at this point in where I'm at with our farm, it's not. But we had good conversations. So what we're doing today, fast forward in 5 years, maybe look totally different again. Like what I think is important today might not be. So it is a journey. Like I think it'll be ever evolving. Some of the things that we tried. So we were intercropping some wheat, peas, flax. Nope, there was oats, peas, flax in this first one. Second one, we had oats, canola, I think there was Dutch clover in there. You can see there's some spots where we had to spot spray. We didn't spray everything. We just, you know, one of my rules was if it starts to impact my cash crop, it's got to be terminated. So we did a fair amount of spot spraying. There were some fields we had to spray end to end. I think that technology of spots or spot and spray, that's new technology that's coming, and I think that's going to have such a good fit in the direction that I want to go. It's coming real soon. So this friend of mine from Australia, Robert, he's a very progressive farmer, does a lot of work with John Deere. And so when I've got to go over there and harvest, I've got to sit in quite a few meetings with VIP John Deere guys, and I get to see that world a little bit. And the technology is moving at such an incredible rate that it's not so far away. But I might know a wee bit more than I should. So yeah, we were intercropping some of these. This is my cleaner. I don't got a great picture, and yeah, when you do a presentation, you realize, man, I didn't take enough pictures through the year. But anyways, it's just a density screener. You speed up the fan, you just carry the particulates farther, less. You're just screening out the heavies versus the lights. The lights get pushed back farther, drop out. Separating's not an easy task. This screener works all right, but it's not good enough. So when we're cleaning, the peas come out relatively good enough that I actually use them for seed. But like our oats had too many pea splits in them. We couldn't sell them into a premium market. I think that's important. If we're gonna do intercropping, we gotta be in the premium markets to make the extra money to make this, to get the extra dollars. If we're just gonna be on the feed side, we're not making extra dollars doing this. So it takes a fair amount of effort. For us, it involves, you know, 2 guys, wages, equipment necessary to move all this. It's not a cheap task. Going through the numbers, it was definitely putting a significant dent into our bottom line. Also through the winter, I'm not looking for extra work. Like, we have enough work cleaning seed for our customers. We're pretty exhausted. You know, I think through what we're doing through the summer months, it's pretty labor intensive. Some of the program that we're running, we just want some time off. So I don't think it's our best of our use of our time. We hired a mobile cleaner to come in and clean. He certainly was doing a better job than I was doing. It's slow. Like he couldn't just charge me 50 cents a bushel or whatever it was. We had to do it by the hour just because of the speed he had to go to get it somewhat satisfactory. Our local seed plants in Barhead and Westlock, they don't want to touch this. They don't want to do this in their busy time. Off season, you might be able to talk them into it. So last week, I attended the 71st annual meeting for the Alberta Seed Processors. I'm just got elected to be on the board at the Barred Seed Cleaning Plant, and they did a whole session on this actually, and I want to share it with you. One is sell as, or I should say, some of the questions that the seed plant should be asking before taking on a separations job. Sell as is, expectation of cleaning costs, market value of clean grain. Are the screenings marketable? Value of screenings. Will screenings have to be re-cleaned at additional costs? Quality of the grain and possibly, yeah, I said that already, extra cleaning costs. So why is this being discussed? Separations of grains can be very profitable for these plants, but also can be problematic. When producers get a higher than expected seed cleaning bill, that usually is problematic. So I'm going to skip through a little bit of this. Why am I spending so much time talking about this? I just ask a lot of questions. For us, I didn't feel like we weren't making more money than a monoculture crop. Like it just, I think we can do different things to achieve that. And so we're in a business to make money. If I want to do something good for the world or the environment, I'll probably just volunteer some time somewhere else. But for our farm, it's got to make money. So here, maybe I don't have a picture of the drill. So we're just using a tow-behind cart, 3,200 gallon cart, 60-foot seed hawk. We're getting 100 acres out of a fill. We bought a Patterson liquid kit. Works all right. It's super simple, nothing fancy, not variable rate. It's just on, off, that's it. No sectional control. So when we first built our system, we built it so we were putting the compost broadcast on the ground and injecting 8 gallons an acre into the seed row with a little bit of compost tea and all the other treats with it. The compost was, some of the compost was going by itself, 24 gallons an acre. This was problematic. We were getting plug screens a lot. We actually gave up on it for a bit. Just we needed a little time to lick our wounds because we were trying to seed 200-300 acres a day, and we were struggling to get 60, 80. I was in and out of the tractor. I was wore out. We struggled through 500 acres, and just like, Greg, I don't know. So I had an aha moment. I phoned Greg. I'm like, Greg, what if we just scrap some of this? Let's just put everything this whole concoction all together, and let's 32 gallons an acre. Let's put a bigger orifice in, and let's just flood this system and just put it right into the seed row. And that worked so good. Like, just eliminated all our problems. So that's what we're doing, and that's what we're going to keep doing. So what are we putting in our seed row? We are using the hog compost from Brian, and that works great. He's doing a great job. We'll just continue getting it from him. We're using the essential phos. We're using the Simzil, the monosilicic acid, humic acid, and sugar. That's what's going into our seed row. I thought I had a picture of it, but maybe I don't, was how we mix our product. So we've got a 1,200 gallon cone bottom tank and a 10,000 gallon tank. And we just hang a bag into that cone bottom tank with my bidirectional, 60 to 80 pounds of compost, and we dip it into that tank. I salvaged a 4-inch T&E pump, just put some hydraulics on it, hooked it up to the tractor, and that's what rotates our compost through that. We let it bubble for 20 minutes, half an hour, and that seems to work pretty well. We kick it into the big 10,000 gallon tank. Yeah, that's our process for how we build it. I think the Gen 5 reactor probably works good, but we just needed something a little bit more robust. You know, if you're seeding 200, 300 acres a day, you're 7,000, 10,000 gallons of product, and it's a big job. Like, my son is doing the job, and it's more like a 2-person job, but he's doing it all by himself, and he is run off his feet. So we are using that Mac to fill our tanks, and that also brings compost water to the field. And we have a trailer set up in the field. It's got all the other stuff on it, the FOSS and the Simzil and everything. And we fill those tanks. I do the mixing, and away Ty goes and gets more product ready to go. That's problematic for us. It's too slow. Like, we're spending 45 minutes to an hour just mixing this product and getting it into the drill. It's got to change. We're losing, 100 acres a day of drill time just through that process. And I know I can't get it to zero. We're going to use some time to do this, and we're going to continue it because I think it's that important. But we're losing 2 to 3 hours every day of just time that I could be drilling. So one of the changes I want to make is possibly mixing on our yard. It's going to put more pressure on Ty because he's going to have to mix. Then he's going to have to fill this truck and bring it out to me and fill the drill, and it'll speed me up, but his day is going to get a whole lot more difficult. I think we want to add one more 10,000 gallon tank. So our results, this is year 1. Barley on the left here. It's not quite as visible in the picture, but it sure was when I was combining it. On the right, no compost, but there's 50 pounds of nitrogen. On the left was 0 compost, but 50 pounds of nitrogen. On the right, it is 50 pounds of compost, or 50 pounds of nitrogen and compost. So the difference between the two, we were a 30 bushel difference between the two. And a lot of it was to do with kernel weight, like just bigger kernel. We also, in this malt variety Copeland barley that we did this, we added an extra 40 pounds of nitrogen, so we had 90 pounds total, and it only gained us an extra 15 bushels, so that's pretty expensive bushels to buy. Oats, this was another accidental trial, seeding, like, why are we not getting product down? Like, tank seems to be staying pretty full. Jumped out, yep. Dial head went back to 0. We weren't putting anything out, but there was an absolute line in the field. Left, no compost. Right, compost. It was just, this is right along the highway. You could see it. Didn't matter how fast you were driving. It was so obvious. We went out into this field, Greg and Curtis and I, and we counted kernels on the right versus the left. Way more kernels than what was on the right. I didn't take any data information off the combines yet, haven't had a chance to do that, but I don't understand quite why is it standing better with the no compost versus the compost. We had a big wind, absolutely leveled the oats out. It's a forage variety oat, Baylor oats, don't stand well, and it sure didn't. It really went down pretty heavily, but we learned a lot. We measured bricks. We measured electrical conductivity. Electrical conductivity between the difference between the compost and no compost was significant. I don't remember the numbers, but I do remember the bricks numbers. We struggled to get 8 on the no compost where we had compost, it was 12 and a half. Significant. So Lauren talked a little bit about getting your mixing order correct. That's what happens if you don't. Pretty sludgy on that picture. So last thought about mixing is my advice to anyone thinking about doing this. You don't necessarily have to buy a Gen 5 reactor or whatever. Just, you can build one cheap, make it robust, fast, big. Like, for us, fast and a lot of volume is important. So seed treatment, we haven't talked much about seed treatment. We use Greg's seed treatment. So the backbone of our seed treatment is we use compost from a Johnson Sioux bioreactor, and I got that from Shorty. Thank you. That's our backbone. That's what everything starts with. Then we add the soft rock phosphate, sugar, yucca, and the humic acid. We had pretty decent nodulation. We're starting to get good things happening on our roots. We use this recipe on everything. We use it on barley, oats, peas, faba beans. We no longer use an inoculant on any of our legumes. We believe that all the ingredients are there. We just need to have the right fungi, bacteria, and I'm not an expert on nodulation, but I think everything is there. We just got to give it the right recipe to grow, and it seems to do its own thing. So we use a lot of seed and fruit from Hybrix. It's a foliar feed. We'll be doing some more trials this year because we're not very good at trials. I think it's important because we're bombarded with so many products. We need to know what works, what doesn't work, and it seems like we got to figure it out for ourselves. Our peas, we struggle with Aphanomyces, and my boss tells me I'm not allowed to grow peas anymore. We used a lot of seed and fruit. We were just trying to keep this somewhat viable. It probably looked okay for a while, but it sure went sideways at the end, didn't yield very well. So we had something similar with sweet clover. It was actually the first time I seen Greg, actually he didn't have much to say. Like, I was like, oh, must have pissed him off somehow because he's not saying anything. But it was that bad. Like, it was thin, it was ugly. And here's where I want to get on my soapbox a little bit, is on this where we put the sweet clover. We had a faba bean crop the year before, seeded with oats. What else was in there? Dutch clover, chicory. I asked my son to spray it the fall before, so he did an outside lap. He did a couple of up and backs. Sprayer gave us trouble, and I said, that's okay, just shut her down for the year. It's gonna be cold tomorrow, we're done. This is what it looked like in the spring. So if we want to have regrowth in spring, okay, that's what we're seeing. We put 1.5 liters of Roundup trying to control those weeds. It didn't. It choked out our sweet clover so bad, but yet where we had good kill with the Roundup in the fall, that's where our best crop was. So I struggle, I guess, a little bit with the theory of roots working together and sharing stuff and water. Not my experience whatsoever. This was our train wreck. Just some pictures of the sweet clover. We worked hard at it. Like all through flowering, we went with seed and fruit. We did 6 passes of this once a week. We went through this. Greg and I did some EC work early. There was nothing happening. Like, it was just terrible bad. was dead. So let's do some seed and fruit, see if we can't get something out of it. We did manage to pull a 43 bushel an acre crop off of that. Now that seems pretty good, but in context a little bit is we just started hauling it in to get cleaned. We're probably going to lose 40 to 50% cut because there's so many weeds in it. Where did those weeds come from? The crop from the year before. Some of the products we'll keep working with. We are using the compost tea, we're using fulvic acid, we are using seed and fruit, sugar as our fungicide. We'll keep working at it. We'll keep comparing it to a fungicide and see where we're at. Another product we've been working with is biopollen. Seen good results 2 years ago, less this year, but we'll keep working with it. What else are we working on? We're building a spreader because we want to spread gypsum. Gypsum's going to be our sulfur source. Gypsum's also going to be our calcium. We've got some magnesium. Our calcium magnesium ratio is out a bit. Our percentage of magnesium is pretty high, so we want to address some of those things. So we're just building that spreader. I want to thank Greg for the opportunity to share a small snapshot of this journey. A lot of great opportunities have been presented to me, and it's certainly not by my hand at all. I've been incredibly blessed by God to do this stuff and have great people in my farming career. And there's a lot of those people are here today, and I just want to recognize a few of those. And one of them is my dad. First of all, because he dragged me to some of these meetings and started me off on this journey, so it's mostly his fault. Daryl Chubb helped me out a tremendous amount. Kevin Elmy, of course. Shorty Fensky, incredibly amount of good phone calls. And Shorty, I don't know what I'm doing. He talked me through a bit of it. Patrick Fabian, thank you. Greg, thank you as well. So there's been a lot of phone calls of, I don't know what I'm doing. Robert Ruwalt, he's pretty special to me too, because he doesn't want to talk about regenerative farming, but he's more regenerative than anybody I know, but he hates regenerative talk. Jeff Dole, I know you're not on this bandwagon too much. You were my consultant as in a previous life, but I respect so much about how you view plants and structure of soil. So thank you for that. And that's it. Thank you. Any questions?